Welcome to Liner Notes. My name is David Bixler. 2024 has been a productive year for LA-based pianist and composer John Beasley. He released 3 new recordings, 2 of which are up for Grammy Awards. Nominated in the category of Best Latin Jazz Album is El Trio on Challenge Records, which features bassist Jose Gola and drummer Horacio El Negro Hernandez. The second nomination in the category of Best Large Ensemble Album is for the recording Returning to Forever, a reimagining of Chick Corea's Return to Forever with the Frankfurt Radio Big Band on Candid Records. John Beasley, welcome to Liner Notes. Thank you for getting up in LA and meeting with me this morning. It's great to see you. And 2024 was a very busy year for you with 3 new records, 2 Grammy nominations, and really want to jump in with those. Congratulations on that, first of all, man. So anyhow, good to meet you and welcome.
Nice to meet you too, man. It's a pleasure to be here, and thanks for all the work you do to get the music out there.
Yeah, someone has to, right? There's a lot of great stuff out there that needs to be heard. So glad that you are here sharing with us. So let's maybe start with the trio record, El Trio live in Italy on Challenge Record, and that's with yourself, Jose Gola on bass, and Horacio El Negro Hernandez on drums. Is this a group that's been working for a while? Have you been together?
Horacio and I have been working together since like the 90s, off and on. We did a couple tours with John Patitucci, a record with John, I believe, back in the 90s, and we always kept up. And then we started working together again in the early 2000s for about 10 years with a producer named Kip Hanrahan. A bunch of records that Kip did. We go in there and improvise. And eventually we got a record deal. It's called Robbie and Negro at the Third World War. It's like this big Cuban band. Me and Brian Lentz actually were the only non-Cubans in that band. And we ended up with the Japanese record label and touring Japan with an artist like 3 or 4 times a year for about 10 years there. Yeah. So, that's how we hooked up. We always played together and, we're friends. And an Italian promoter suggested that, we put something together for a tour a couple of summers ago. And we both, Horacio's got a big history in Italy. I've toured Italy a lot. So we did the tour and, they recorded, nowadays on a laptop, 8 channels, no problem with the trio, right? So, and then Jose Gola is also from Cuba. He's a great bass player. Both those guys also work with Chucho Valdez. And I had done a project with Chucho in 2021 and 22, or maybe 23. I don't know, something like that, called La Creation. And so we toured for a couple of years, and that's how I got to know Jose Gola, the bass player.
Does he still live in Cuba?
Horacio does. Jose's in Miami.
Oh, okay. All right. What was the, how did you hook up with Chucho?
He kind of sought me out. I mean, I've always known who he was. Oh, no, I think the first time was Jazz at the White House. I was the musical director, one of the producers of of International Jazz Day. And we did it at the White House when Obama was there. And Chucho was one of the performers that night. And, we were both busy, we were both working. So, we talked a little bit, not much. Then I think the next year or the year after that, we did it in Cuba, in Havana. and Chucho was the artist in residence, I guess, with Herbie. And so we got to know each other well there because I was in Cuba for a couple weeks, and he's a great guy. He loves talking about music, and he's a very sweet dude. And then he got this commission to write I don't know, how would you call it? A suite of music. It's like 45 minutes piece, basically based on Jordan Diaspora coming to Cuba, and how the drumming and the religious activities, and the spirituality from West Africa melded with, Cuba. And then, so that's like one movement, and then it kind of goes into sort of Cuban jazz, and then up through New Orleans and New York. It's this whole piece, and I arranged it for him because it's for big band, 2 keyboard players, me and Chucho, 3 baton players, like I said, and a singer.
Okay.
Right.
All right,
Yeah.
cool. The other question I wanted to ask you, in reading up on you, it seemed like many of us, you kind of fell into jazz through some of the horn bands in the 70s, Chicago, Blood, Sweat, and Tears, maybe progressed through Weather Report, and then, got to jazz. How did you, what sparked your interest in Afro-Cuban music?
Rhythm. I love the way it feels. I've always loved rhythm. I played drums. I was always playing drums. Not so much anymore, but well, actually, one of my first gigs was Sergio Mendes, and I was at that point the second keyboard player. Played a lot of the horn parts and stuff on keyboards and synths, and also played percussion. And those guys in the band, they were Brazilians. They taught me what to play. Play this here, And then when I was, I used to play a lot of Afro-Cuban bands here in LA, and when it broke down, they always handed me the clave. I was always holding down the fort with the clave, and then that evolved into hanging out with Robbie Amin and Horacio and Pedro Martinez, Pedrito Martinez. Those guys were all in that band. Yoswani, Terry, so.
Bad Cats.
And with those guys, it was always a Roomba everywhere we went. Restaurants, buses, everywhere.
Of course it was.
So,
man. Yeah.
that was my education,
That's the vibe. That's great. So was this recording, you said there was a producer in Italy that put this together. Was this the first time the 3 of you played as a trio?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. He was a promoter. He was
okay.
a concert promoter.
All right.
Yeah.
Is the recording from one concert, or is this like put together from the tour?
I think it's 2 concerts. I think it's mostly from 2 concerts. Yeah, and Jose Gola, he mixed the record, There's no overdubs. I mean, it is what it is, and like a jazz record,
I mean, the sound is really killing on it, man. So it's interesting, like, what you can do with a laptop, pretty cool. Let's talk about the music. It seems like maybe there's a lot of collaborative tunes on the record, the originals, and then one Wayne Shorter tune, Elegant People, with a little Weather Report action there. Very cool. So is this all new music that you wrote for this band? Or like work with this stuff, or some of it just kind of improvisatory?
Some of it's improvisatory. 3 for Africa and Arroz con Mango, those were tunes. Oh, also in 4, I believe it's called. It's actually in 9/4 time. Those are songs Horacio and I had written for the band back in the 2000s, early 2000s, right?
Right.
Those are from records and just done with a trio instead of like a, 8-piece band or whatever it was, The rest, Sierra is a song I wrote years ago. It's on my first record. I don't know, man. It's been a while since I've checked the record out, to be honest. I don't know the names of the other tunes, but it's mostly original music, like you said, except for Wayne Shorter, and you know we always play these tunes different. We're still it's Afro-Cuban fusion, if you will, but we're still playing jazz, and changing forms, tempos. The grooves seem to be different every night.
Keeping it fresh for sure. You brought up Sierra. One of the things I noticed at one point, it kinda had a little bit of a Giant Steps vibe for just, like, 3 seconds. There's one place
Oh,
where
really?
it cadences and, I don't know if that was intentional or if you're aware of it or I'm making it up, which could
No.
be, man. Yeah.
No, I think I know what you're talking about. There's a part where Horacio starts swinging for like 2 bars.
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
the part you're talking
Well,
about? Yeah.
it was like a harmonic thing. They just like what
Mhm.
happened, it just kinda struck me. I have to go back and check it out for,
I know
when
what you're
this
talking about now.
yeah.
No, that was not on purpose, but yeah, it does evoke that.
Well, it's there. I mean, you
Yeah.
soak it all up and then, it comes out, man. Um,
Somehow, yeah.
the other thing that, I found interesting is, I first listened to this record in the car, and I'm thinking, "Wait a second, man, this is a trio. Well, I'm hearing this flute on here." And,
Oh,
uh, and then when I
yeah.
listened to it again, I realized that I'm assuming that was you on, some kinda keyboard or synth. And, there's various things, like, kind of like an allusion to Harmon muted trumpet and also soprano saxophone. But the thing that I thought was kinda cool, like, you were just trying to play the role of a flute. I'm not sure I could get behind that, but I think from, like, as a listener, what you were doing, it was kinda like maybe tipping your hat to, "Okay, this is what is part of this music," in every situation this was in, and is this, like, something that was, like, a conscious decision? Maybe I'm completely off in my assessment of it, but this is what I was hearing on
Mhm.
this.
Yeah, and that song, that's the song is in 9/4 that has a crazy title called In 4, it's called. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, it just seemed I didn't think about it much. I just started, this would be one of those songs that, um, you know, Dave Valentine would play on or something like that, right? A little vamp like that. So I grabbed a flute patch and played it on the flute patch instead of on the piano, you
No,
know?
it was cool.
It was not really science. It's just, oh, it has this, that kind of has that thing. And I can do that. I mean, I have the sound I can approximate,
Right.
you know.
Yeah. No, very cool. And so this record, I just wanna point out, is, nominated for, Best Latin Jazz Album and, got some serious kudos from, El Maestro, Chucho Valdez on, very, complimentary of your music, so, that has to be encouraging. The other record, Returning to Forever, and this is with the Frankfurt Radio Big Band, and this is, music of Return to Forever reimagined. Great ensemble. They're, pretty meticulous in, everything that they're doing. Had you worked with them before? And also, it's a question within a question, I'm getting ahead of myself. You did the project before COVID and then recorded it after, so maybe, unpack a little of the timeline on this?
Yeah. I've worked with them quite a bit, usually once a year, one project a year or something like that. Um, So I had done a record with Somi, the singer, with them in 2019, and that was not actually I think that was the last nomination they had too. That was nominated for like a vocal jazz record or something like that. Um, and so we were having dinner. I was having dinner with the artistic director, right, the guy that runs the show there, and before a show, and he said, "Well, let's figure out what we can do next," that kind of thing. And so I just asked him. I said, "Well, what instrument do you play? You're a musician." "I'm a guitar player." And I said, "Well, what do you like?" He said, "Oh, I love fusion." So it just snapped into my head. Oh, we should do a Return to Forever record, because you know the way Chick wrote, it's already sort of the form and structure is already there in a way. You know what I mean? It it was almost like every tune they played was like a classical, like a sonata or something, right? It would start off with with one of his children's songs or something like that, and evolve into a groove, and then it would have these unison lines together, and it seemed like it would work for a large ensemble. So he said, "Yeah, cool." That was 2019. We were supposed to do the gigs in 2020, and of course, they got canceled, right? In the meantime, we did a Duke Ellington online thing, during COVID with that band. It was kind of fun. It was 3 writers. It was Jim McNeely, me, and Miho, and I think Wolfgang Hofner. Anyway, so that's what they ended up doing. I ended up just writing in 2020. In the meantime, I had reached out to Chick and said, "Hey, what do you think of this project?" Partly to get his okay in a way, his check, but also because I asked him if he had any of the old lead sheets, from back in the day, right? And he did. He had them all, and so he sent them in an email, PDF copies, and I opened them up, and they were all in his original handwriting, man. It was really sweet. And then so I called him back and said, "Man, this is great. Thank you so much." And yeah, he's cool with the project. And he said, "Well, if you get a couple demos together, on Sibelius, this music notation software that I use, it'll play back, sounds like a computer, but it'll play back the ideas. So make me some demos and send them to you. I'd love to hear what you're doing." So I got through about 4 of them, and I thought to myself, "Well, it's time to call, trying to reach out to Chick again and send him, see what he thinks." And within a couple days of that, he had passed away very unexpectedly, right? So COVID is still happening. We booked some concerts for the winter of 2021. So I'm there freezing. uh, we get through the rehearsal. You have to test every day before you get onto the facility because it's a radio state-run television station and radio station, right? It's a radio band. Those guys are on salary, and everybody's on lockdown, and this was it pre-vaccine? Early 2021? I can't remember. I think maybe we were vaccinated by that time. Anyway, but it's still, it's everywhere. And so we get through rehearsals, okay, everybody's being tested and all this stuff. And we got through the first concert, it was great. Cameras, everything, they video everything. And the second night, 20 minutes before the concert, the theater is packed. They had to cancel the concert because the trombone player came down with COVID. Nobody else was sick, but that was their rules, you know, that's what they do. So, that crashed. A year later, he says, "Well," this would have been early '22, I guess. He says, "Okay, let's record the record. Screw it, you know, we're just gonna record a record. Come do a couple concerts." And so we rehearsed and, and, mixed summer of '22, and I was with John Burke at the Grammys, like a Grammy party, winter of 20 this year last year. Well, winter of 2024? Yeah, sorry. Um, and Candid Record, John Burke runs Candid Record. They had just put out the Electric Band box set, and I had seen that advertised, and I said, "Oh, man, this would be a perfect spot for this record, right?" And they had Burke and Chick's company had a relationship because, uh, Chick's Imprint Records, you know, his record company was an imprint on Concord. So it just kinda all finally fell in place after COVID, you know? Yeah, that's a long story, but that's what
No,
happened.
no, it's cool. How I mean, the music sounds like it's, fairly complex. Is it, like, rehearsed before you get there?
No, because they do projects every week. I mean, I send the music ahead, and those guys are great about practicing it before rehearsals and stuff. But, I think we rehearsed 3 days and then recorded for 2 days. Yeah. It's a pretty good situation, they're salaried, the studio's incredible, I wish we had something like that here.
Yeah, yeah, right. I hear you. I wanna talk about your, compositional, process, your take on things. Did you, maybe speak a little bit about that? I mean, have you had, like, formal training, or have you just, like, been absorbing things that you like and then folded them into, your different projects?
Yeah, I didn't go to university. Um, my dad taught at universities. My dad is a musician and taught at North Texas State, which was a really good music school, and also I think it was the first college in the country where you could actually get a jazz degree back in the '50s or '40s, right? So they'd had, 11 big bands at one point. So it was huge for that. And my mom is a musician, was a musician and an educator. She's a high school and junior high school band director. So that was kind of my formal training. I took private lessons on piano and oboe. I played oboe all the way through school. But when it got time to, and I got sort of into what we want to call jazz music and pop music pretty early. And I kind of knew by the time I was 14 or so that this is what I wanted to do. So I was obsessed.
What were you gonna do with
I
that
played,
oboe, man?
I was stop playing as soon as, yeah, yeah. As soon as I got out of high school, that was it for the oboe. But I was in the piano and, playing the records. My dad would bring home, materials that he was teaching, and my dad is also a composer. So I kinda got into arranging and composition at the same time as the piano, but more on that side. I wasn't as serious about the piano until later, but my dad had brought home, Central Park North, this Thad Jones, Mel Lewis record, and then I was at a record store later and saw that Walking in Space Quincy Jones record, you know, big LP, they used to have them on the walls up there, and went, "Wow, what is that? Oh, it's got Freddie Hubbard and all these people on it." And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be like Quincy. I wanted to do film, TV, produce records, do jazz records, arrange. Then he brought home Main Voyage like a year later, and that completely, you know, changed my life again. And that's when I really kind of got more into piano playing. I wouldn't say more, but that's when I got into really kind of studying the jazz and funk on the piano.
Right. Well, in addition to that, man, and listening to, your orchestration and like, the harmonies for the big band, it seemed like you've also maybe done a deep dive into contemporary classical or, 20th, 21st century type harmony. Was that I don't know, something that you've,
Well, I heard that music growing up. My dad was writing, his generation style classical music, which is contemporary harmony. And and then, Mahavishnu and Miles and extended harmony, man, that pricked my ear, and that's what I like. And it is 2024, right? All respect to Rick Garland, all those stuff. I've listened a lot to Rick Garland lately, but that was the harmony of his generation. Now we're over here, and I like tension because I like how it releases. But I didn't go to university because there weren't a lot of them. I was already kind of gigging, and I had this romantic notion that I wanted to be old school and learn from older musicians. There were plenty of gigs at that point, pre-DJ, pre-DUI.
yeah. And excuse me, are you still in Texas when this
No,
is
I live in
happening?
LA.
No, at this time, though. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was still in Texas. Then my dad got a gig in LA, and there's lots of musicians here at that point. Pretty heavy scene. Moved to New York, LA, New York, LA. Finally got established more in Los Angeles.
Okay, cool. And is, education part of what you do at all, and master classes or,
Master classes, I don't have like a steady teaching gig.
Mhm.
I was trying to do that for a few years, but I think I dodged the bullet. I like it, and my parents did, and my grandfather and all that, but I still like performing and traveling around. And
Okay. I can only imagine the time it took you to arrange all of, Return to Forever for this band. Now, is this something that you're gonna be taking around to other bands?
yeah, I have a band called Munkestra, and right, we're still together, and we did some concerts this fall, and we played a couple of those tunes.
So Monkestra's is allowed to play Chick's music?
We're evolving. They play my music too. The last Munkestra record was a lot of my music too, but the spirit of Monk is always there.
Yeah, okay, cool. So you're playing it with your band, so what's next for John Beasley? What's on the docket?
Well, there's a couple things in 2026 we're looking at that I can't really talk about, but
I'm guessing they don't involve International Day at the White House, though.
yeah, maybe across at the park in some kind of protest or something, but that's about it. No. In this country, man, you know, we still don't have a minister of culture, man. Every country in the world has a minister of culture. And this is one of Quincy's big things he was trying to push for years, is to get, uh, at least a minister of culture in a department, where he could, spread art around the world or here, our own art form, right?
I'd never thought about that, but yeah, that's obviously true,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, yeah. But we digress. We're gonna soldier on, right?
No choice, man. Other than the top secret events of 2026,
Oh, yeah,
anything you wanna
right.
share?
Yeah, there's some touring going on. I'm gonna be, in Latvia with the Latvian Radio Big Band doing our project Bird Lives. Um, and then, I've got some dates with, Diane Reeves in March. We're gonna play, in February, actually, we're gonna be at Lincoln Center, at Jazz at Lincoln Center, sorry, for a Valentine's show, what, 14th and 15th, I think.
Great.
Then some dates with her in March in Europe. Um, April is International Jazz Day every year, April 30th. This year it's gonna be in, I can't say where it's gonna be in. I'm not sure if they're really funny about letting the goose out of the hat or whatever.
It's all
So,
good, we'll know when we need
unless
to.
they've announced it, I can't really say. But it's gonna be in a cool place, an international place, and that's always a big gig, big fun, big project to do. May, I'm writing some arrangements for a big artist, one of the biggest artists of Portugal, for a symphony. So that's in May. June, I'm gonna be at Jazz Baltica and a bunch of festivals, and then Diane's got a bunch of festival stuff in Europe. And then we're going to do another tour of Italy in late July into August.
Excuse me, with the trio.
No, with another trio. Same promoter, though.
All right.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Let's see. And then there's some stuff happening in the fall. There's a record to be made in the summer as well. So for 2026.
Cool. All right, John, I thank you for your time, man, and all the best with the Grammys, and we will catch you soon. Liner Notes is grateful for the support of Van Doren Reeds and Mouthpieces. Be sure and check out the Van Doren Advisory Studio in New York City for all your sound sculpting needs. Liner Notes is grateful for the support of Arlen's Good Beer in Bowling Green, Ohio. Engineered by Marco Mendoza. Visit his website at engineeredbymarco.com. The theme music is Hide, Seek, Find from my record Beatitude, out on Tiger Turn. Produced by David Bixler. Be sure and subscribe to Liner Notes wherever you find your podcasts. If you like what you hear, I ask that you consider supporting Liner Notes financially. You can do this by going to the Liner Notes tab at davidbixler.com. Thank you for your consideration.